It's time for another devlog, and this week we didn't actually end up doing too much that I can show off. So this is likely going to be a fairly short one. I'll probably be talking a little bit more about like planning ahead and what we'll be doing over the next week or two, because again, there's not a lot of things to show that I have done. So the main thing that I've worked on is, as you can see, there's some splines running along this level, and it looks very, very messy, and it kind of is in a way, but I've made this. If you've, oh, that's popping up on the wrong monitor. I've made this. So if you've tuned into my live streams over this week, I've live streamed the creation of this new camera system. This is the object that is in charge of the camera now. So let's go over this real quick. At begin play, we make a reference to the player character so that I can use that for putting the camera at the right spot later on. We make sure that the camera that's being used by the game is the camera from this object, not the camera from the player object. We create some arrays here, which set the exact distance along the spline for every single spline point for both of these splines. So we have a bottom tracking spline here. This one tracks your progress through the level. It compares the player character position to the closest point on the spline and figures out its progress from there. Then this top spline takes that information and places the camera on the corresponding place on this spline. We'll get into how that works in a moment. For that, I need to create both of those arrays with that information. Then we do a fuck ton of math, which I'll go over really, really quickly what we do here. Because what this more or less is saying we're checking the distance along the entire spline, and we're checking between which two spline points that is. So if it's between spline point 1 and spline point 2, we know we are progressing from 1 to 2. If it's between spline point 7 and spline point 8, we know we're progressing from 7 to 8, or whatever I said. So we know that the camera should always be between those 2 points as well. In that way, we have a little bit more control over when the camera is at what position at what point, because we can just add another spline point, kind of like a keyframe, or kind of like an anchor, to make sure that at least at those specific points, the camera is at that specific location. So then we do a shit ton of math, converting things to a usable value that I can just like pass on. Then we do the reverse of this entire operation again, and that then sets the world location. It also sets the world rotation for the camera, so that the camera is always looking at the player character, and we get the set control rotation equal to that as well, so that you always have a proper control direction. I'm kind of debating what I'm going to do with this going forward, because it doesn't quite feel right at the moment, I don't think, but we'll get into that as we go along. So this entire thing, the boxes with the cam changes, aren't going to be used anymore because they don't work too well in conjunction with this. So maybe sometimes for an entire like side-scrolling level, I can still use this. But other than that, it's going to be mostly this rail cam system that I'm going to be using in levels. So that being said, let's just walk through this level real quick. We can do that in an editor preview window to show you how things look right now, because they look pretty significantly different from what they looked like before. So you can see the camera angle is quite different. The entire feel of how the camera moves is a lot smoother. It's a lot more cinematic. Which I do like, but it does fuck a little bit with your depth perception every now and then. It also is really annoying with the transparent block thing that I downloaded off the Unreal Marketplace. So I'm going to take that part away, I think, because we don't need it anymore if we just put the camera in a clever place. I might make something where if your character is behind the block, you can see like an outline of it. Like there is a possibility to do that with stencils. But like as you can see here, the camera moves in this very smooth downwards tilt to being more on level with my character instead of on top of him. And then here we have a bit of depth perception problem. So maybe the camera needs to be slightly higher up for this section of the game. But this is the camera spline that I like put down in like an hour before I started recording this devlog. So there's definitely a lot of things to improve on here. And sometimes like these camera movements do go very quickly and they do feel a little jarring. But there's not much I can do about that. But as you can see, I do end up going to the sides of these platforms quite a lot, which means that the control direction is kind of messy sometimes. That being said, I really like that little camera movement there. It makes things feel a lot more dynamic, even if not always. It's not always easy to control the character necessarily. I'm going to have to figure out what actual players think of that compared to the last version. I feel like people might have a bit of a problem with it. You see, I almost jumped off there because the control direction is kind of confusing. So that's especially here, right, where precision platforming is very important. You kind of want to have a control direction that's just pressing to the right, goes to the right in the level, not necessarily dependent on the camera view. So maybe I'll make something like a side-scrolling object, where if you go into the specific whatchamacallit, a specific hitbox, your control direction will just be set to a side-scrolling thing, and that should fix it. Because I think the problem mostly comes in when you're in a side-scrolling section and you start moving like from here to there and there to there. And I do want that to still be possible for the most part, I think. But there is still a lot of work to be done there. But the camera system itself is again, there I almost jumped off. The camera system itself is more or less finished. And for the time being, anyway, it might change again at some other point. Who fucking knows? Maybe I'll get so good at this whole AI thing that I still need to learn a lot about, that I'll end up just making a AI system with a camera. That would be kind of neat, wouldn't it? It probably won't actually end up happening, but it would be kind of neat. So I'm going towards the test level right now as well, just to show you how different that level is real quick. And I also, fuck me, I also just like platforming all around this world. So while we go there, let's talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing over the next week, because obviously we didn't have a lot of things that we worked on this week. I did work on the new level, which I'll show you after I play through the test level. And I'm probably going to be finishing up that level and starting the second level of that world over the course of this week. Also, the water material here is not great, so we're going to have to look into why that's flickering. It's probably something to do with the fact that the lighting is on preview call, let's say, I have to imagine. Because now I have almost finished the 1D, the one-dimensional level, right? So we're going to move on to the two-dimensional level next, and that's going to be pretty much just a side-scrolling level, which is also, okay, sometimes there is a little bit of fuckery where the camera just like cuts ahead a bit, and that's not great. So, but the thing is, the last devlog, I think, the one before that, maybe, I don't remember. I talked about the issue I had with my last version of this spline-based camera system, where sometimes, like, if you're comparing your character position, depth perception, holy fuck, if you're comparing your character position against a spline, like against a curve, you are going to run into situations where you can like skip parts, which is just really annoying. This is definitely not one of those bits. It might be one of those bits. We'll take a look in a moment. It might be nice to show some live trouble, fuck me, shooting of that. But by and large, that wouldn't happen too much. It happens sometimes, but I don't think that's a problem with the programming of the actual system. It's more a problem with the usage of the system. Because if I have to make something that does not do that, I honestly don't know how I would do that. I'd need to make an entirely different system. And at that point, I honestly do think that you probably want to have something AI related, and probably something very much more annoying to deal with. Like, you could probably make something where you can like compare your position against the location of like a collision box or something like that, and make it a little bit more consistent that way. This is like a lot better than it was, right? This portion. So that's good. We also need to get to fixing that enemy. The reason I have not gone to do that yet is because it's going to involve a lot of math as well, which is generally not the most fun bit to do. But now that I've done this camera spline system and I've done a lot of math with this, I feel a bit more confident in fixing those wannabe thwomp enemies. So maybe we'll also do that this week. I don't know. Let's see. Do we make this jump? We do. And that's the test level. It's a lot more playable with this new camera system and this and those new perspective and stuff like that. So let's now take a look at the work in progress level, because the work in progress level I have right now, it's not gotten a lot better. It's also got a couple of issues, but I've finished the first draft of the puzzle, and I think the puzzle is going to be one of the last things that happens in this level, because there is not a lot that you can do in a platformer in a level where you have one-dimensional movement. So this is kind of a neat idea, but it also is very restrictive in what it allows you to do. So that being said, again, the camera angle here does make things significantly better looking, I would argue. It feels a lot more dynamic, feels a lot more like it's like actually a camera rather than... I don't know how to explain it, right? A lot of games kind of feel like you're looking through your screen into the world, whereas this feels more like a camera that's filming the character while it's doing its thing. One thing is not necessarily better than the other, I might add. I personally like the idea of it feeling a little bit more like a camera. It's probably like thematically not that relevant for this game. In Mario 64, for instance, you have Lakitu, which is the camera following you, and that's supposed to really feel like a flying around camera. Anyway, that specific portion is a bit problematic because, again, the look forward or the movement rotation or the control rotation, whatever it's called, gets a bit fucky when the camera goes left and right. So I just need to make a hitbox there that just says move rotation. It's just straightforward there. Now, we have this puzzle. This puzzle is more or less finished. If you don't want to see the solution to the puzzle, I highly advise you to skip about 5 minutes or so ahead, because I'm going to run through it real quick. I need to playtest this puzzle a lot more than I have so far, because like this tile, for instance, is a red herring. But I need to make sure that pressing it doesn't accidentally give you a second solution to the puzzle, because you're supposed to skip it. Also, I now realize that I moved the entire puzzle to the right, and some of the tiles did not go with it. That's kind of a problem. So we want to have, let's see, this one pressed down, I think. Yeah. And we ignore that one. This one's just supposed to take you over a gap, which I need to make sure you can't jump down through that gap either. It's kind of a thing. Then that one goes up, which usually you would take that lift down and then walk under this one. That lifts that up, and then you have one of the bridge parts going up. I really do like the fact that going into like the puzzle maze raises one of the platforms, because it shows you more or less what the idea of the puzzle is. These buttons are going to influence, some of these buttons anyway, are going to influence those platforms at the bottom. But the moment you go back down, that also goes back down. So what you need to do while you're in the puzzle is make that middle one go down, so that when you go down in the end, when you finish the puzzle, that middle one goes up. I think that's a relatively clever thing to do, if I may say so myself. So next up, we go all the way over here. We go up to this level. And here as well, we have a couple of red herrings that just literally don't do anything, like this one. This one blocks you off from going to this platform over here, but this platform over there doesn't really do anything. That being said, I think I've just found an alternative solution to the puzzle, which shouldn't be happening. Yeah, this is definitely not the way you're supposed to solve this puzzle. So again, I have to work a lot more on this puzzle and figure out a way to make this puzzle in such a way that it's only beatable in one way. Because right now, I came up with a solution that's not the solution that it should be. So puzzle design is hard. It is really what it comes down to. But I honestly do think that we need some sort of puzzle at the end of this, because otherwise this level is just kind of boring. So having a puzzle here, and maybe even having a puzzle with some of those enemies inside of it, just to like slow you down and make you pay a little bit more attention as well, isn't a bad idea, maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this entire level. I quite like the idea. In execution, it turns out to be pretty tricky to design for a level. So what I'll be doing over the next week or so is work some more on this puzzle, because it is the bane of my fucking existence. I'll be making some better textures to go with this level, because a lot of these things, like this thing over here, it's just a cube. Of course, I'm going to have to make a different model for that. That's also cube shaped, but not this ugly. Then I also want to have a texture with like ones and zeros, like binary, that will be used for most of the, actually all of the platforms in different colors. I need to have eventually, for the player character, I need to have a wireframe version of that model. But for that, I need to remesh the entire model. And if I'm going to remesh the entire model, I need to do weight painting all over again, and at that point I might as well do the animation all over again. So that's probably going to be not this week, because eventually I do want to switch out the animations I have right now for custom-made ones. But I'm going to need to learn to like do better animation than I can right now. So that's quite a while away from now. And other than that, I might work a bit on this, but I mostly will probably also start working on the side-scrolling level for this world. I'm thinking that once I have 3 levels for this world, which is the 1D level, that's this, the 2D level that I'm going to be working on, and then the 3D level, which is just going to be a normal hallway level, like the editing level we already have, I'm going to make another build to publish and let people play, because by that point we'll have a couple more levels, A lot of things have changed since that last time. I might also make the overworld for this selection of levels. I don't know if I'll do that for that version quite yet. It depends on when that is. I'm expecting the next test build to be somewhere around end of February, like middle of March maybe. It really depends on a lot of different things. But I do think that as I have a lot of the basic building blocks that I can reuse in a lot of different levels right now, it's mostly a matter of making the levels. And then sometimes, like a puzzle like this, it requires making and programming some new objects. And then the camera system I revamped, and there's definitely going to be more things like that going forward. But I think a huge portion of what needs to be done, it makes use of the objects that I already have made. So hopefully that's going to mean that development is a little more speedy going forward, and we can make what's the opposite of a vertical slice? Like a horizontal slice, like a a foundation. That's kind of what that is, right? Where everything is kind of in place, and then we're just going to like polish things up for like a year, and maybe we'll have a playable, sellable game at that point. Who fucking knows? At this point, I'm excited to be moving on to other levels, because mostly this level is just it's fucking killing me, dude. The thing is, I can't, like, the gimmick of this world is that you go from 1 dimension to 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. So I can't kill this level. I can't throw away this level without having the entire theme of this world just collapse in on itself, and that's kind of a problem. In the meantime, let me do that. So hold on, that's not where that should go. It should go more something akin to that, I think. So yeah, definitely there is some problems going forward. This puzzle is one of them. I might just do a different puzzle if this doesn't end up working. But there's not really much to say about what we should be doing or what we have done anymore. So we're going to end it here. It's a bit of a shorter devlog than usual, but that is the current state of things. So do look forward to more development live streams. I did 2 live streams, like 4.5 hours of total work on the new camera system, which this is actually a pretty good level to show you how it works as well. I said that I would, so now I will. As you can see, right, we have spline point 1 and spline point 1. When we get to this point, the camera will be here. When we get to this point, the camera will be here. When we get to that point, the camera will be there. I mean. The only issue is the spline controls in this software are not great. They're not ideal, and scaling the spline, like these tangents, the handles, up and down, does actually also impact the way the distance along spline is calculated. So that makes things even more annoying. I don't know if there is a way to take just one of these handles and, like, say, move this up without moving that down. That would also be a huge help if I figured out how the fuck you're supposed to do that, because that's kind of the entire point of having these handles, right? These to be able to make those kind of angles and curves. This, I mean, if we're doing this, we might as well just use the rotation of this, which does the exact same fucking thing, right? If I just rotate this, that does the same fucking thing. So having these 2 separate handles is fucking useless if you can't individually manipulate them. And I don't know how you do that. Because in any logical piece of software, if you take one of them and hold shift, or if you hold control, for instance, that would do it. You might think, Alt would be a logical key to hold as well. None of them do what that should do. Can I maybe... Hold on. Spline point type, curve, linear. Okay, no, that's definitely not what we want. Constant, also not what we want. At this point, we're figuring things out live. So if you want to see more of this, do tune into to the live stream, because this is exactly just what that live stream is. Unclimb tangent. Let's see. I think this might be what I was looking for. Nope. It very much is not. And now I can't move these things at all anymore. So, I don't know. Maybe I do it through here. That gives me the same exact fucking options. Reset automatic tangent, spline generation panel. That's kind of neat, knowing that I can just generate a circle spline. That's not what I need right now, though. Snap, align. None of this does what I needed to do either. Hold on. I think this might be it. Okay, I figured it out. It's I need to enable allow discontinuous splines. So that's going to help me a lot going forward, because right now I can just like move this one back here. And then say move this one a little more like that. And now this is a lot more straight as far as movement goes, which is not necessarily a good thing. I actually quite like how it looked here. But for the editing level specifically, it was kind of a problem at points. So see me problem solve live. There we go. I'll be back next week with hopefully a little bit more news.